So kind of you to give us your time today.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Simon's been designing gardens and landscapes in Hertfordshire for 25 years, large landscapes right down to small courtyards. His mission is to help his clients create gardens that reflect our values and our passions, as well as our practical needs. Simon will help us live more sustainably and support biodiversity. Simon's gardens can help us entertain, grow food and cook. We can all have gardens that are a paradise for butterflies and bees and other creatures. So let's hear your top tips for making our gardens green. Thank you, Simon.
Well, thank you very much, Alison. My talk today is all about gardening to heal this planet, because we're at a stage with this climate crisis where everyone has to do whatever they can to make a difference. Just by being here today, you have made a difference. Thank you for being here, and thank you to HACC, if I may call you by your acronym, for asking me to speak today. I think you've done a wonderful job, you really have. I am a garden designer, so I work alongside people who are garden owners, and I design gardens. I use design to create landscapes that are beautiful, practical, full of wildlife, that are sustainable, that capture carbon and reduce flood risk. I bring a creative and collaborative approach to solving garden design problems. I care about this stuff, and you know what? I think you do too. My starting place today is that we should all try and be the best gardeners that we can possibly be. We can do this. Now, the best gardeners are going to be on the front line in the battle to tackle climate change. We have a law in this country that says that we have to get to net zero by 2050. Now, assuming that gardeners are law-abiding citizens, then the best gardeners will play their part in ensuring that this legal requirement is carried through. Just a bit of perspective now, I think. There are an estimated 30 million gardeners in the UK. According to the RHS, that's the Royal Horticultural Society, 3 million new gardeners since COVID. And in 2009, Davis et al. Estimated that UK gardens cover an area of about 432,000 hectares. That's an area greater than the size of the county of Suffolk. But that is only 2% of the UK land mass. So, we've got to understand that agricultural land comprises about 70% of the UK area. And I don't think anyone really thinks that parks and gardens on their own can really make up for what is happening in the wider countryside. But on a very upbeat and positive note, this did not stop the RHS in 2017 stating in their climate report, gardens have an important role in helping to mitigate against the effects of climate change because certain management practices may help to reduce greenhouse gas emissions or help fix atmospheric carbon into the soil. So, what does it mean if we're going to be the best gardeners? Well, first we must recognise that our climate has been altered by human activity. Let's just acknowledge that humans are part of this problem. Climate change means that we have to alter our behaviour and the way we garden. To help us answer the question of how to be the best gardener, I'm going to divide my talk into 3 sections. It's going to be all about control, influence and concern. And in practice, this means 3 things. Let's control what we can control, influence what we can influence, and let's not be too concerned about what we can't control or influence. So question 1. As best gardeners, what can we control? Well, from the tiniest little space to acres of land, everyone can do their bit. And in fact, I was at the Chelsea Flower Show on Tuesday. I don't know if anyone else was there, but well done. But the balcony gardens were a brand new category because the RHS is recognising that everyone's got their bit to play. And of course there's indoor options too, growing things on windowsills and stuff like that. Literally everybody can do their bit. But whatever the size of your space, we should be growing more food at home and eating it. Just think of the food miles thing, it's better for us, isn't it? Now, we can actually control quite a lot in relation to growing food, and of course this applies to gardening in general. Let's start off by composting our green waste. Why? Well, composting locks up carbon because it decomposes slowly. Food waste that goes to landfill is bad because it produces methane, which is 26 times more damaging as a greenhouse gas than CO2. 26 times. Does anyone remember that on the junction of the A10 roundabout, you know, that landfill site with the big chimneys that they used to set alight to burn off the methane? It's only a few years ago, you know, absolutely ridiculous. And of course, once compost is produced, we can incorporate this into the soil. And the build-up of organic material will lock up carbon dioxide. Basically, it's a winner. In contrast, using peat to grow things releases carbon dioxide and destroys valuable sphagnum moss-rich ecosystems. So look for, ask for, and use peat-free composts. There are now some high-quality products out there that work. And I've just got this from Deadwood Compost. I spoke to them at Chelsea, which is one of the reasons why I go there on a professional basis. I mean, you know, they're great guys. They are combining bracken and wool and other things, you know, into this whole range of peat-free compost. There's kind of no excuse. Under questioning, though, I will tell you a little bit about nurseries, but not now, because there's a limit to what I can cover here. But nurseries have their own view, you know, on sort of peat use. But basically, do not buy peat, do not buy products grown in peat, as in plants, you know, and I will be mentioning peat again. So that sorts out some of the soil issues, you know, and of course there's mulching and stuff like that we can think about as well. But let's just look at plants. And when it comes to planting, you may have heard of a wonderfully famous garden designer called Beth Chatto. She has a garden in Essex. Some of you might know it. She talked about the right plant in the right place. And right plant, right place is very helpful to us. Because what this means in practice is that the careful selection of plants for the soil and growing conditions are right, you know, one of our first priorities, right there in our heads. Don't just go to the garden centre and say to yourself, oh, look at that. I think I'll have one of those. The chances are you will end up with the wrong plant in the wrong place. So choose plants that are right for your soil and your garden microclimate and that give you pleasure. Do your research, you know, use the RHS website, buy books, build up a good reference library. Right plant, right place means that you won't have to water continually or replace plants that die because they are unsuited to the growing conditions. It will save you money, and it will also mean that you will be in a very good place to influence others. We should try to reduce our use of petrol-powered tools, for example on lawns. And using hand tools, we are using our muscles. And hey look, you know, I got clipped into my belt, like what I always do, my secateurs. And this is the favourite tool that I have. And they're just so brilliant. I mean, you know, you can sort of do stuff with these. Make sure you don't chop off your fingers. It's just so easy when you're going around a garden. And I often have it on my belt when I'm meeting a client, even for the first time, because I can just do stuff while I'm there. You know, it's really, really good. So it's going to make your muscles stronger if we use hand tools, and we will grow stronger, and we will hopefully be healthier. You know, let's try and keep ourselves out of the hospitals. My word, they need every bit of help we can get. So let's grow strong and be healthier by using hand tools. Hopefully you're going to laugh at this, but nearly all my clients' garden meadows are cut with an Austrian hay scythe, you know, by hand. I mean, this is great news, isn't it? No petrol, no CO2, hey, no worries. I've got a question for you. Hope that's okay. Have any of you tried to mow less? Like, you know, you're drinking your coffee in the kitchen or the back garden or whatever, and you say, oh look, should we just give the mowing a miss? I mean, have any of you tried no mow May, for instance? Yeah? Go on, let's have a show of hands. Yeah, okay, well done, well done. I like that, I like that. And I don't worry too much about so-called weeds in a lawn, because when you stop mowing, all of that kind of thing is helpful to insects and beetles. After all, what are weeds? You know, they're wildflowers, aren't they? In fact, we should encourage biodiversity and structural diversity in our gardens. And Ken Thompson's studies in Sheffield gardens show that dense vegetation is good for insects. So plant trees and shrubs. They trap carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. They reduce the risk of flooding because of the way they intercept rain in the rain cycle. And they can even capture particulate pollution. Yeah, the RHS have done studies on this. Okay, well, I'm hoping this talk isn't a dead loss, but I'm hoping that we've got some deadwood on hand, because deadwood is really good. It's really good for invertebrates. We call some of these invertebrates that live off deadwood, and I'm showing off a bit, I hope you don't mind, we call them saproxylic invertebrates. In other words, animals that live off dead or decaying matter. And plants that live off dead or decaying matter are called saprophytes, and what am I talking about here? Hey, fungi, yeah? And fungi are very important in the soil. And can I just say, you know, there's a really, really good talk going on David's bookshop in Letchworth are setting up next week, this coming week, you know, on the master. I won't go into it too much. The master of fungi in our soil. Talk to me about that in the next questioning session if you want to know more. But we need to try to plant a diverse variety of pollinator-friendly plants. We should choose plants with different flowering times, and some of the late season stuff is very helpful. For instance, ivy. Now, I stole this, I cut this from the car park in the middle of Hertford. Don't tell anyone, okay? Oh, it's too late, it's captured on camera, isn't it? Oh, never mind. But anyway, can you see these are about to open? These are going to turn into flowers. You know, they're not quite open yet, so you can see how late in the season this is going to provide lots of pollen and nectar for all our pollinating insects that are around. And you know, we've got something like, I think it's 250 different types of bees in this country. 90% of them are solitary bees. I feel quite sorry for them sometimes. You know, they're solitary bees, but they will be hunting around for pollen and nectar off things like the ivy. A lot of people try to cut down ivy, don't they, off their trees. Maybe we should avoid that, so we leave it at this time of year after all the other plant nectar sources have disappeared. Encouraging vertebrates in our gardens is good too. Remember, hedgehogs will hoover up quite a lot of slugs, and amphibians are predators too, so you might like to think about a pond. Now, some people have butterfly nectar gardens, and butterfly nectar plants are good for the adult butterfly, but remember, there's the egg, there's the caterpillar and the pupa. Where are they? What do they need? So we need some long grass and maybe some nettle, so that those parts of the life cycle can be there. So keep some longer vegetation, some taller plants in your garden. Wherever possible, avoid the use of chemicals, but if required, just use products with a low carbon footprint. Okay, here's another question for you all. How many have used a garden designer before? Anybody used it? How many of you have used a garden designer before? Okay, that's good. And sort of, you know, as a consultation, that kind of thing, you know. Well, I don't know how it went. I hope it went well. But I think most people will need some kind of help to design a garden amid climate change, because there's quite a few issues around it. So I'll just go into those a little bit. Now, a good garden designer will be on top of the climate issues. They'll be able to advise you, help you select plants and create climate-friendly garden strategies that best suit your garden environment and its surroundings. They will introduce you to craftsmen and techniques that will help you to heal this planet. Because our summers are warmer and getting longer, I often advise clients to plant a dry garden, or maybe use drought-resistant plants and even drought-tolerant plants. These are what I call planting strategies. They can be very low maintenance and sometimes with just one annual maintenance event. Certain plants have evolved drought-resistant growth strategies. They might have deep fibrous root systems. They might exhibit mounding, you know, like lavender. Or they might be silver-leaved to reflect strong light and to keep them cool. They might have a long taproot like the verbascum. Leaves are basically hairy, furry, fleshy or leathery. and these are all water conservation adaptations. They do well in a warming climate. Now we're starting to control what we do. Let's try and extend our influence. Now, nearer to home, if we're going to be the best gardeners that we can be, we need to try and influence things. And I'm thinking about shopping habits, or what I sometimes call shocking habits. These need to be self-policed. I am cautious about garden centres that will sell you anything. I tend to use plant nurseries because they seem less consumer driven and more plugged into the community network. I try to avoid outlets that stock peat, and I do speak to them about their peat products, but I have to say I'm not always comfortable with their response. So basically, don't buy peat. I mean, you've got that message from me, I think. I mean, you should understand that many people are working to restore peatland ecosystems by planting sphagnum mosses. So if we buy peat, we're actually working against the conservationists that are trying to save the peatlands. Think twice about buying slug pellets, particularly those containing metaldehyde, very, very toxic to hedgehog and birds. Don't buy single-use plastic. Now, high-impact rain events are a problem now the climate crisis is here. 100-year events are arriving at 30-year intervals. And green infrastructure can be installed on a property. It will help tackle climate change issues such as flooding. Flood risk can be reduced by the deployment of rain gardens, blue roofs, swales, retention ponds, detention ponds, permeable paving, street trees to intercept the rain, stuff like that. Just so you know, it's illegal to discharge water from your front garden into the gullies of the road. Okay, last question for me to answer today is, as best gardeners, what should we be concerned about? Well, I was told that this talk should be upbeat, but you know what? There's some things I just can't ignore. And I've just picked out two things from a huge long list of concerns that I have. The IPCC report, that's the International Panel on Climate Change, says the climate crisis is code red. This is a threat to human existence. I'm quite worried about that. It's hard to ignore that one, isn't it? The RHS have made it clear that gardens and gardeners have a role to play, but it should be a concern to us all here today that on average, in World War II, we spent about 40% of our GDP on fighting that war. Anyone like to guess how much of our GDP we're spending on the climate crisis? It's less than 0.5%. I'm also a bit concerned about media reporting generally, you know, the sort of things you see on front page and stuff. But let's just talk about us, because we're trying to have an impact here. We need to improve our knowledge, our objectivity, our thinking skills, and recognise the value of reason. We should get our information from books and journals. I mean, I've got the RHS journal here, which is pretty good. You know, I read quite widely. In my leaflet, there's my top tips summarised that I haven't been able to cover in the talk, and there's some references and stuff for you there. But we should try and support scientists and scientific research, for instance at Kew Gardens and Cambridge Botanic Gardens. They have great information, graphic displays, and they run courses where we can learn. I am a lifelong learner, and I believe that everyone should be. After all, there's a lot to learn, and it's fun. I'm going to finish now on hope, positiveness, and a bit of a call to arms. I'm concerned that you might feel challenged by the climate crisis. You are not alone. I think we all feel a bit like that. And the way we cope with it is by doing something and giving ourselves a sense of control. You can use my leaflet that I produced specially for this day as a menu and just see what takes your fancy. Yeah? Today, let's network. Let's make new garden friends. Let's make connections with our new garden knowledge and those friendships. Let's help each other. With apologies to JFK, let's think not what your planet can do for you, rather what you can do for this planet. Let's collaborate. Let's tackle climate change by being the best gardeners we can be. Let's just go and do it.